He never truly understood what he was missing when he looked at Irvin. He saw Irvin's success, but couldn't see the desperation that fueled it. All gamblers eventually lose. But while most bet money, Keith Shaddis made the most dangerous bet of all. He bet his entire life on the delusion that he was born special. Shaddis looked at the world the exact same way Aaron did. He saw the walls, refused to live like cattle, and held on to the belief that he was the protagonist destined to save everyone. But he wasn't Aaron. He wasn't the main character. He was born completely ordinary.
特別な人間はいる。ただそれが自分ではなかったというだけのこと。
Let's take a moment to pause and look at the world Shaddis lived in, because once you see how the royal house keeps winning, you realize his delusion was the only thing keeping him sane. The scouts were the scapegoats of the royal society. Their deaths were used as a warning to anyone who dared to dream of the outside. And in Shaddis's world, dreamers like Armin's parents were often killed or silenced. The entire military hierarchy was built this way. The best soldiers were rewarded for hiding behind the inner walls, leaving the scouts to be a public example of failure. Keith Shaddis survived for years, in an era where every mission was a gamble that likely killed more than half his peers. Every time he left the gates, he was embarking on a hero's journey, desperately chasing the victory that would finally prove he was the one. But while he left with the hope of a protagonist, he always returned as the public scapegoat. Instead of a hero's welcome, each returned with a slow drowning. The ordinary bystanders of Eldia, the exact people he was terrified of becoming, were the ones drowning him in the feeling of never being enough, made worse by the silent pity of the one woman he wanted to impress. Shaddis had no one to believe in him. Aaron had Armin to validate his dreams, and Mikasa to be his strength. Shaddis was alone in the dark. The people he cared about didn't see a hero. They saw a man wasting his life. By the time he met Grisha Jaeger, he was drowning under the feeling of being ordinary, and desperately looking for a reason to believe he wasn't just a fool, being pitied by cattle. Most people will succeed if someone believes in them, but for Shaddis, Grisha believing in him was the worst thing that could have happened. When you look at it this way, it's just pretty sad. Shaddis spent his whole life feeling like a bystander, but he was really the one who set everything in motion. He didn't just bring Grisha into the walls, he's the one who introduced him to Carla. He spent years like a ghost, just watching from the sidelines as the currents of life drifted him apart from the chosen ones. When Shaddis finally took command, he didn't just carry the weight of the scouts, he carried the weight of a delusion. Grisha gave a man who felt empty something to hold on to. That something could have been anything. It could have been a warning or a wake-up call. But Grisha chose to give him the idea that he was special. And for a man like Shaddis, that was poison. We all want to be told we're the chosen one. He didn't need new tactics or Irwin's formations. He believed he was the chosen one. And a chosen one wins. Shaddis failed because he wasn't desperate. When the time to shine came, he didn't act heroic. He didn't act desperate. He stayed ordinary and gambled the lives of cattle on being special. The blood of the scouts only served to feed his ego until the blood reached his high horse and drowned him. He wasn't the hero. He was just a nobody. On his special day, the day he was named commander, the cheers he heard weren't for him. They were the echoes of a crowd congratulating an outsider for marrying the woman he loved. He never truly understood what he was missing when he looked at Irvin. He saw Irvin's success, but couldn't see the desperation that fueled it, the willingness to try anything, to rely on others, and maybe the most important part, he had gambled on others and not himself. Shaddis remained blinded by his own specialness. He was too proud to be desperate. He thought a chosen one shouldn't have to rely on others. Shaddis didn't just quit. The man who thought he was special died, leaving behind only the ordinary Keith Shottis. But for the first time, he was able to breathe. Because he was no longer waiting for destiny, he was finally ready to stop gambling on being special and grow. For decades, Keith Shottis was a bystander in his own life. He was waiting for a destiny that was never coming. When he sabotaged Aaron's ODM gear, it wasn't an act of spite. It was an ordinary man desperately trying to save a child from the very poison that had ruined his own life. He was trying to prevent someone from becoming him, and even then he failed, as he was forced to watch Aaron's path.
きないただの傍観者だ
When Shottis stays behind to blow up the boat, there is no crowd to cheer him on.
キースショーです
There is no Grisha Jaeger telling him he is special. He doesn't hold the line because he thinks he's a hero. He does it because he finally, truly, stopped gambling on the idea of being special. In the end, desperation was exactly what he needed. He watched the students he taught, children who had lost everything, fight with a desperation that he never possessed as a commander. Their refusal to be bystanders, even when the world was ending, was the lighthouse he needed to finally find his path in such a dark world. So is he the wrong hero for the story? He died not as a man who was special, but as a man who became special through his own choice. The lesson is simple sometimes. To be a hero, all you need is not to save the world, but save your students.